The clock in a pursuit was not time. It was distance. Nolan Grieve felt it lengthening under every hard footfall as Anton Cale's mercenaries pulled away along the service road, heat lifting off the pale ground in dirty sheets. Hostile fire snapped across the road edge and pinned two of Nolan's people behind a stalled farm truck. The shooters had the lead stopped and open ground ahead of them. They could have kept Nolan there. Instead, while the advantage was still useful, they broke away. Iris Pell dropped beside him and watched them go. They had more time. Yes, you think they got nervous is less than #0. 4# is greater than no. Nolan's 8-person team was the only friendly force still close enough to keep Cale under continuous pressure. Everything heavier was behind them, slowed by distance and broken access. If contact broke now, Cale would have room to scatter his company before support mattered. "Support check," Nolan said. Merrin Holt answered, "Still well back." "Then they don't exist yet. Keep us attached." Iris glanced toward the withdrawing shooters. They gave up a clean chance. Nolan saw a separate cluster farther up the road fold back into the moving column. On purpose. For what is less than #0? 3# is greater than. That's the useful question. Move. The road bent past a low service shed and dry trees that broke Nolan's view into brief, irritating pieces. Pico stayed close to Owen Say, working hard but irrelevant to the immediate problem. Nolan kept his attention on movement, not noise. Merrin left edge. Already on it. 4 moving wide. Toward us? No. Cutting back toward the road ahead of Cale. Can they stay separate? Can't tell from here. Nolan saw dust through the trees, then lost the wide group behind the grove for 2 long seconds. Merrin still had them. Nolan did not. Is less than #0. 3# is greater than. That was the point of the roll, and it freed him to keep the main body in sight. He made the choice. If he chased the wide movement, the main body gained distance. If he ignored it completely, those men could change the next contact. "You keep them," he told Merrin. "Changes only. My favorite kind of conversation." Iris came up beside Nolan, breathing controlled but harder than before. "We can keep this pace." "Good." She gave him a look. That wasn't the end of the sentence. "I know. We can keep it, but we're spending the team faster than you're admitting. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than." Nolan looked toward the road. "If we conserve here, we lose contact." "I didn't say stop. Spend it knowingly." He nodded. Merrin holds the left picture. Everyone else stays on the withdrawal. We don't buy every distraction they sell. That I can work with. Nolan pushed the team forward again. The mercenaries changed their spacing under the renewed chase. A few men turned from the road edge and came back hard enough to slow Nolan's front, while the rest kept moving beyond the service shed. "Right side opening," one operator called. "Let it breathe. Watch the body that keeps moving. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than." Merrin cut in. "Left group is coming back in. They're not staying wide. 2. Nolan answered, "That's our change. Keep eyes there." Owen said, rears pressing again. "Closer." "Much." Iris was beside Nolan again. "You're betting the main body matters more than the men shooting at us. For the next 30 seconds. Expensive 30 seconds. Nolan kept pressure on the moving center instead of turning toward the loudest threat. The choice cost him ground for a moment and forced the lead pair to work harder across the exposed road edge. Is less than #0. 5# is greater than. Then men who had nearly disappeared beyond the shed checked their pace. Another pair came back toward the column. "They're pulling inward," Merrin said. "Rear pressure still has room to work. Let them choose." The mercenaries had a second clean chance to keep Nolan's lead pinned while the road ahead cleared. Their fire sharpened, then ended early again. The shooters broke away. Iris watched the empty edge they had abandoned. Twice. Nolan said nothing. You saw it. I saw it. And I still don't know why is less than #0. 4# is greater than. By the time the service shed fell behind them, Nolan's shirt was pasted to his back, and the radio traffic from the slower friendly force sounded farther away than he liked. He checked the team as they moved, counting shortened strides, slower recoveries, and the small delays that became distance if he ignored them. Owen and Pico were still working cleanly, despite the heat. Merrin confirmed the wide group had folded back in, and the left edge was clear. Iris watched the others for several seconds. 2 are shortening their stride. Can they continue? Yes. How long is less than #0? 3# is greater than longer if you stop asking for miracles. Nolan had denied Kale the clean break, and there was no need to decorate the fact. Contact remained alive. The price showed in his people's breathing and in the physical gap behind them. Support still existed. It simply did not exist here yet. Merrin said, "You want me watching for another wide move. Watch for anything that changes. Tell me what changed." Still no theories. Especially no theories. Iris said, "You're keeping one for yourself." Nolan watched Kale's men ahead. "I've got a question." "Same one." He nodded. "Is less than #0. 4# is greater than." A competent commander had stopped the pursuit twice and called his people off twice while they still had useful ground. Kale was giving up advantages Nolan would have expected him to take. Ahead, the withdrawal had altered because Nolan refused to let go. Contact was unbroken. The question stayed with them. The road split before the heat had left their lungs. One service access kept straight past a low farm building, another curved along open ground, and a rougher track broke toward the fields. Kale's people did not take the choices the same way. Some kept moving as if distance were the only thing that mattered. Others turned back in short, hard bursts whenever Nolan's team pressed too close. A third group shifted sideways, not leaving, not attacking, simply refusing to stay where Nolan expected. 3 problems, Iris said. Nolan shook his head. 1 problem with 3 shapes. That sounds cheaper than it is. Merrin was already watching the outer movement. Field track has bodies on it. They're still moving away. How many? Enough to matter. Not enough for me to guess what they want. Good. Don't is less than #0. 3# is greater than Nolan saw. Seth Var, near the aggressive rear element. Exactly where he belonged in the current fight. Close to the men who came back to create space. Then left again when Kale pulled the larger movement forward. Nolan registered him because the same man kept appearing wherever the rear contact tightened. Straight access is slowing, Owen said. Open ground is gaining distance. Iris said, "We can't pay full price for all of it." Nolan watched the branches for another second. Then we stopped pretending they cost the same. Pico changed before Owen said anything. His less than #0. 4# is greater than. The dog's head came up near the farm building, attention narrowing toward the shaded side of the structure. Owen checked him, then looked at Nolan. Human presence close to that building. Nolan kept moving. Hostile. Human. How many? Can't give you that. Intent. Owen kept his eyes on Pico. That is all I have. Human presence. Iris said, "There's your bargain." The straight access offered the shortest continuation, but the building sat close enough to make a blind commitment expensive. Nolan did not send the whole lead element into it. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. He shifted the team away from the structure and accepted the extra seconds it cost. Merrin, what changed while we paid for that? Merrin answered immediately. Field track group gained ground. Rear element came forward again. Open ground group checked once, then kept moving. Kale. Still central, moving between them more than before. Owen glanced at Pico. You want another look? No, we got what he could give. Which was? Iris asked. Nolan answered, enough not to walk 8 people into a question mark. The detour cost them tempo.
That was the price of useful uncertainty. It could keep you from making one bad commitment without telling you what the good commitment was. The near-contact men came back again, Var with them, fast enough to force Nolan to split attention without ever giving him a clean picture of the whole enemy. Rear pressure increasing, Merrin said. Field track still pulling away. Iris looked at Nolan. Pick one. I am. You've been saying that with your face for a minute. Nolan ignored her and watched what Kale's people did when pressure touched different parts of the withdrawal. When Nolan leaned toward the field track movement, the central body kept going. When he threatened the central movement, men farther out checked and adjusted. The response was uneven, but it happened often enough to matter. We push the part that makes the others react, Nolan said. Iris answered, and if you're wrong, then we learn quickly. Expensive habit. You mentioned that. Merrin cut in. Outer group just checked again. Nolan committed the pressure to the central movement. Vera's men answered with another aggressive return, stronger than before. Nolan's team lost a few seconds dealing with it, but the larger withdrawal no longer flowed cleanly. Kale's moving, Merrin said. Toward the rear? Toward the foot. Nolan saw him then, no longer buried deep in the movement. Kale crossed closer to the branching axis, directing one group forward and cutting another aggressive push short before it could drag too far back. Var's men broke away while they still had pressure to spend. Again. Iris saw Nolan watching Kale. There's your question again. It never left. He's spending himself now. Nolan understood what she meant. Kale had been able to control the withdrawal from deeper inside it. Now the branches were making him move, speak, show himself. The company was still coherent, but maintaining that coherence had become physical work. Owen said, we lost time at the building. We did. Worth it? We're still here. Merrin added, field track is no longer cleanly separated. They've checked twice to match the central movement. Iris said, and we're still spending people to make that happen. I know. You say that very calmly. Would panic improve the math? Might make you more entertaining. Nolan almost smiled, then Kale moved again. This time the commander crossed a strip of open ground between the central body, and the men Var had just pulled back. The distance was shorter than it had been at any point since the pursuit began. No wall of bodies closed around him. No vehicle carried him out of reach. He was visible, exposed for seconds at a time, forced forward by the pressure Nolan had kept alive. Merrin, Nolan said. I see him. Owen? I see him too. Iris looked from Kale to Nolan. Don't turn an opening into a fantasy. I won't. Nolan watched the next movement begin to form. Kale had become reachable for seconds at a time. Nolan did not mistake that for control. After the ground they had spent to create it, that was enough. Kale was still in the open when Nolan moved. The gap was not large, only honest. Too much ground for fantasies, too little for hesitation. The central body had begun to pull itself back into shape. Merrin, outer movement. Still leaving. Any turn back? Not yet. Iris, with me. You say that like I had options. Owen, rear picture. Find, held. Nolan drove the lead forward before Kale could disappear behind his own people again. Men near Kale reacted at once. One pushed Nolan's line toward the hard edge of a service wall, while another crossed the open ground between Kale and the moving center. Iris said, windows closing. I can see it. Then don't admire it. Nolan adjusted. Nobody chases the loudest man. Keep Kale visible. One operator drifted toward the nearest threat. Nolan cut him back. Kale, stay with him. That include you? Especially me. Heat came through his boots. His breath had gone rough, but his legs were still under him. Kale looked toward the men moving away, then back toward Nolan's pressure. No surprise. No grand gesture. Just attention. Merrin said outer group checked once. Why? You told me no theories. Good answer. Iris glanced at Kale. He knows the gap is shrinking too. Nolan said, then let's make him spend it. The resistance tightened, instead of breaking. Nolan's lead lost a step, gained half of it back, then lost the clean angle again when Kale's protection pressed across the open strip. Left is closing, Merrin said. Not closed. You want me to keep saying that until it is. Tell me when it changes. Iris caught one operator before he overran the turn. Stay with the actual problem. The man answered, I thought that was it. It was about to become 3. Owen's voice came through. Rear is still with us, Pico's clear. Nolan said, keep him out of this. Gladly. Kale moved toward the narrow space between the service wall and open ground. It was simply the best line remaining. Nolan saw it. He's going for the gap. Iris said, so are we. Now. His people closed distance as Kale's protection tried to reopen it. The collision compressed everything. Bodies hit hard surfaces. Someone lost footing and recovered. Nolan caught an arm, lost it when weight shifted, and had to reset before the mistake grew. One of Kale's men forced an assault operator off the wall, reopening the gap. Iris filled it until he recovered his feet. Iris. Here. Keep him from getting clean space. I was planning something very similar. Merrin cut in. Outer movement still away. You've got seconds, not minutes. Nolan answered, seconds will do. Kale nearly escaped the pressure when Nolan's formation stretched. Nolan saw the change before he understood it fully. One man turning, a narrow exit appearing, Kale already angling toward it. He's breaking right. I see him, Iris said. Nolan moved. The space collapsed into impact. He hit one knee, regained balance, and drove forward as 2 operators closed from the opposite side. Kale fought with controlled violence. He shook one contact, turned his weight toward the last clear direction, and almost made distance. Stay on him, Iris shouted. Trying. Try faster. The next seconds were breath, grit, pressure, and hands refusing to let movement become escape. One operator said, lost him. Another answered, I have him moving. Kale broke one grip and turned into the gap. Replace it, Nolan said. A second operator stepped in, then Iris, and the opening closed. Nolan got close enough to feel the fight change. Not end. Change. The exits were gone. Stop, Nolan said. Kale kept fighting. You're done moving. Kale answered through hard breath. You sound hopeful. I'm practical. Nolan's team compressed again. Kale changed direction once more and found another body there. This time control held. He's contained, an operator said. Iris snapped, then stop bot for the fight you already won. Kale was alive, breathing hard, held without a clean direction left. Killing him now would add nothing. Nolan looked at him. Anton Kale. Kale met his eyes. Apparently. The victory had weight before it had shape. Nolan allowed himself one breath to register it. Kale was alive, secured, and no longer commanding the withdrawal in front of them. 2 with him, Nolan said. Move him toward follow-on control. One operator asked, custody route. Nolan pointed back toward the slower, friendly control. You 2 own him until handoff. We move without you. The operator nodded. Iris watched the custody pair take Kale. That cost us 2 forward. I can count. You keep saying that like it makes arithmetic less rude. Merrin was already watching movement. Nolan. What changed? Not one thing. Nolan looked ahead. Some of Kale's people kept putting distance into the open ground. Others checked. A few turned back toward the pursuit without matching the rhythm of the men still withdrawing. Owen said, "Rear contact isn't moving like the outer group." Iris asked, "They all saw him taken?" "They saw enough." Merrin said, "Outer movement is still leaving." "And the rest?" Not giving me one answer. 8 humans had become 6 at the forward edge, with Pico still beside Owen. For one breath Nolan let the capture register, difficult, real, complete. Then the 2 missing operators became equally real. Nolan watched the SMB divide into different immediate decisions. "Keep contact," he said. Merrin asked, "With which part?" Nolan looked from the men's still leaving to the ones who had stopped acting like them. "That," he said, "is the next problem." The answer came before Nolan had time to name the question. Several of Kale's men disappeared farther across the open ground, and others followed without looking back. The withdrawal was still happening. At the same time, movement near the service boundary reversed. Not scattered hesitation. A deliberate turn. "Rear coming back," Merrin said. "How much?" "Enough to hurt us." Nolan saw Var among them, still with the men who had handled the close pressure before. Only now they were not breaking away. Iris said, "They're not going for Kale." Nolan watched the returning group angle toward his reduced pursuit element instead of the prisoner route. "No." "Then, what are they doing?" "Making us answer." "That's vague." "It's also current." The first pressure hit before he could say more. Nolan's 6-person forward group had just lost 2 bodies to the custody task and had not found a new rhythm. Merrin, edge. "I have it." Owen, Pico tight. Already tight. Iris. Still here, regrettably. Impacts snapped through the exposed movement line they had occupied. Nolan dropped behind the work boundary. Iris landed beside him. "You wanted the next problem." "I preferred the old one." Merrin cut in. Right side widening. Nolan looked once. "They're shaping our movement." "That's your theory?" "No, that's what they're doing right now." Var's group did not push toward Kale's route. They pressed the places Nolan needed to keep moving forward and seeing ahead. Each time he tried to restore the pursuit line, pressure forced another correction. "Right side crossed behind the boundary," Merrin said. "How close?" "Close enough that you stop asking." Nolan shifted one operator to cover the gap. "Open ground." "Still has bodies leaving, they are not coming back." Iris crouched beside Nolan. "So we have 2 behaviors." "We have 2 things happening. Don't promote it yet." "You planning to wait for paperwork?" "You know me better than that." Another burst drove them lower. Owen pulled Pico in behind the hard edge. "Dog stays with me." Nolan said, "Good, I don't need another variable." "For once, we agree." Nolan checked the route behind them. Kale and the custody pair were already farther from the immediate contact. That problem stayed solved. Merrin said left boundary changed. "How?" "Movement close, very close." "Can you hold the picture?" "That's why you keep me around." Nolan heard the dry edge in his voice and almost answered. Then Merrin said, "There inside are." The sentence vanished under the violence that followed. Nolan turned toward the break. Iris said, "Nolan, wait." He did not. Merrin went down beside the edge he had been watching since the pursuit began. Nolan reached him, and knew immediately there would be no conversation. Merrin was dead. Nolan still waited half a beat for the next edge report, before the silence told him what his eyes already had. The man who had owned the part of the picture Nolan could not was simply gone. "Merrin's down," Nolan said. One operator answered, "Can we get him?" Nolan saw the pressure closing. Not now. He moved toward an operator pulling back from the boundary, and something hit hard enough to turn his upper body. His right shoulder took the force badly. Pain flashed fire, then strength disappeared in a way that frightened him more than pain. Nolan. Iris was there. Later. No, lift the arm. He tried. The shoulder answered halfway and failed. Enough. Iris said, that means no. It means I still have one useful arm and a mouth. A tragic combination. Another impact struck the boundary. Nolan kept the injured side close without deciding to. He started to point with the bad arm, lost strength halfway through the motion, and changed the command instead. Pull off the exposed line, Owen with Iris, one on me. And Merrin? Someone asked. Nolan looked once. We cannot take him under this pressure. The words were clean. The fact was not. Move. Var's group pressed again. Nolan gave ground instead of defending a position that no longer bought anything. Iris shouted, keep the team together. Nolan answered, that is exactly the plan. The formation bent. It did not break. They reached a harder boundary with enough separation to breathe and count. 5 humans forward now, plus Pico. 2 directions changed at once, and Nolan heard himself waiting for the report that no longer came. Nolan said, someone carries Merrin's outside watch. One operator answered, I can take the left, not both. Then take the left. We live with the blind side. Iris touched Nolan's arm and stopped when his shoulder tightened. Strength is unreliable. Protect it, do not pretend you have normal control. Noted. That wasn't advice. It rarely is. Owen looked toward the open ground. Some are still leaving. Nolan saw them, figures continuing away with no sign of turning back. The men with Var had not followed. They remained close and organized enough to pressure the pursuit again. Iris said, Kale's gone and those men are still here. I noticed. You have a theory. I have fewer people, 1 dead man, a bad shoulder, and 2 different directions of enemy movement. Theory can wait. Owen said, practical. I try. Nolan watched the separation hold. One part of the enemy increased distance. Another had come back and killed Merrin while working against the pursuit itself. He could explain neither without guessing. We keep moving, he said. Owen asked, toward which problem? Nolan looked at the departing fragments, then at the men who had turned back. His shoulder throbbed with every breath. First, he said, we survived the one coming toward us. Nolan kept the team moving because stopping would let Var choose the next fight. 5 humans, Pico, no Merrin, and a right shoulder that had already learned to betray him under load. He kept the arm close. Ahead, 1 fragment of Kale's former column crossed open ground toward a service cut. Behind and left, Var's men stayed close enough to force a second answer. The operator carrying part of Merrin's old watch said, Fragment still moving, left side holding near us. Can you keep both? Nolan asked. I can report both, I cannot see both at once. There it was. Merrin's absence in 1 sentence. Nolan asked, can you hold the partial watch? Yes, I cannot replace Merrin. I didn't ask you to. Iris stayed near Nolan's injured side. You cannot carry 2 pursuits at the same pace. I'm not trying to. You're assigning people as if you are. Nolan watched the fragment increase distance. If he let it go now, armed men who had belonged to the same company would disappear from direct pressure. That was not a trivial choice. 1 set of eyes stays on the fragment, he said. Everyone else answers Var. Owen glanced toward him. 1 set of eyes doesn't slow anybody. It keeps us from losing them for free. Pico stayed tight to Owen. Nolan pushed on, trying to keep both directions consequential with a team too small to do it cleanly. For a short stretch, the compromise held. The fragment slowed near the service cut, and the watching operator kept Nolan updated while staying close enough to rejoin. Then Var's men moved in whenever Nolan looked forward. Fragment checked, the operator said. Left side closing. Nolan turned too fast. His shoulder lost strength, and his good hand slapped the work boundary to keep him upright. Iris saw it. That arm just made your decision for you. It offered an opinion. A loud one. Nolan sent one operator a little farther toward the departing fragment, while the rest angled left. Owen looked between the two directions. We're stretching. For 30 seconds. You said that before. Then count fast. The forward operator called. I can see them. I can't make them care. Nolan asked, can you close enough to change their pace? Not without leaving the rest of you. Then don't. Behind Nolan, Var's men closed enough to force Iris and Owen tighter to the boundary. Left now, Iris said. Nolan. He pulled attention back. By the time he did, the fragment had gained another strip of open ground. The team had not lost either picture, but they no longer had Useful's influence over both. Seeing two problems was not the same as controlling them. Var exploited the split before Nolan could repair it. The returning men drove at the reduced center, hard enough that Nolan had to call the forward operator back. Turns to us. I still have the fragment. You won't have a team if you stay there, move. The operator broke away from the service cut and folded back. That saved the center from stretching thinner, but the cost was immediate. The departing fragment crossed the cut and disappeared beyond the position Nolan had meant to contest. We lost the route, the operator said when he rejoined. Nolan could see that too. Can we recover it? Only by committing hard. Iris looked at the distance, and then at his shoulder. You want to chase it? I want several things. Pick one your body can pay for. Var's men pressed again, then withdrew before Nolan could force them into a longer contact. They did not turn toward the departing fragment. They did not slow to collect it. Minutes later, the same local pattern came back from the left and made Nolan's spend people there again. Owen said, same men, same side. Close enough to be sure. Close enough to know they never went after the others. Nolan's team had lost tempo, the service cut and the cleaner route beyond it. The fragment kept going. They reached ground where the choice could no longer hide inside wording. The farther fragment was still leaving. No one from Var's side recalled it or moved to rebuild the larger column. Var's men had returned again instead, keeping their attention local and forcing Nolan to answer. Iris said, we cannot keep paying to be mediocre in two directions. The operator carrying Marin's partial watch added, Fragment is almost beyond anything we can affect without committing everyone. Owen said, left side is building again. Nolan asked, same local group? Same behavior. I won't promise more than that. Good. Nolan looked toward the disappearing men, then toward the movement coming back. Marin would once have owned one of those pictures while Nolan worked the other. Now everyone carried pieces, and Nolan's shoulder could not substitute for a missing person. He had already lost the route he wanted. Another divided push might leave him with neither a pursuit nor a coherent team. Hold long enough to see the next change, he said. Iris watched him. And then, Var's men edged closer from the same direction. The fragment ahead continued away. Nolan let the two facts sit together without forcing an explanation. Then we decide what we are willing to lose. For the first time since Kale's capture, the next decision was not how to keep chasing everyone. It was who Nolan would stop chasing. Var's pressure arrived before Nolan finished deciding how much he could afford to lose. The left side tightened again, while the fragment ahead moved toward open distance, beyond the service cut. 5 humans could not hold both directions with equal weight, not with Marin gone and Nolan's shoulder failing whenever he asked too much of it. Fragment still clean, the operator carrying part of Marin's old watch said. We can lean on them if we move now. Owen answered from the other side. VAR's closing. Iris looked at Nolan. There's your bill. Nolan already saw it. Push after the fragment and VAR gained room against the reduced team. Turn fully toward VAR, and the fragment would keep going until direct pressure meant nothing. His injured arm hung close as he moved along the work boundary. Even that sent a dull pull through the shoulder. How long before they're beyond us? He asked. If we lean forward now, we can still affect them. If we don't, they're gone. And VAR? Owen answered, closer every time we look away. Iris said, there is no version where 5 people do both cleanly. Nolan nodded. That is the useful answer. Nolan looked from one direction to the other. The old response would have been to keep both uncomfortable until one broke. That response had just cost him the service cut and most of his margin. He did not have enough people to buy it twice. The farther men kept leaving. VAR's people kept coming back. Between those facts was a third that Nolan no longer had to manufacture. Nobody was trying to pull the two parts together. The departing fragment widened its st. VAR's men stayed local and returned where Nolan's reduced team was thinnest. Left again, Owen said. Nolan shifted, felt his shoulder threaten to give, and stopped using the injured arm for balance. Iris noticed. Good. You finally learned something from pain. He ignored the invitation. The operator watching ahead said, Fragment just checked near the open break. We have a window. Nolan saw it. For several seconds he could still spend the team on the old mission and force pressure toward the men leaving. VAR's group moved closer at the same time. If we go after them, Iris said, we give VAR our center. Nolan asked, can you keep us connected if we push forward? For a little while, not while he keeps coming back like this. Owen's voice cut through. Left side, now. How close? Close enough that I need your eyes here, not ahead. The choice stopped being theoretical. One branch was increasing distance. One was taking distance away from Nolan. He could no longer treat those as the same immediate demand, simply because both had once belonged to Kale. Drop the forward pressure, Nolan said. The watching operator turned toward him. Completely. From our immediate fight, yes. You want me to stop tracking them? Track until they clear. Do not spend movement on them. Do not pull us after them. Iris said nothing. That mattered more than agreement. Nolan continued. Fold back. Everyone turns to VAR. Owen glanced toward the fragment. They'll go. I know. Probably for good. Nolan looked once at the open ground. Then make the handoff in your head now. They are no longer ours to chase. The operator came back. With nobody leaning on the fragment, the distance opened fast enough to become irreversible. First they crossed the break in the ground. Then they passed beyond the last position Nolan's reduced team could influence without abandoning VAR. They're clear, the operator said. Nolan kept his attention left. Confirm once. Clear and still moving. We could not close that now without breaking off VAR. Done. Stop reporting them unless they turn back into us. Understood. Forward fragment is released. The order closed the door. KL remained captured. That fact did not change. The men Nolan released were simply the cost he was choosing now, rather than pretending he could postpone it. VAR's group came on again, concentrated and local. Nolan shifted team toward the threat that still demanded an answer. The fight narrowed immediately. There was less information to carry and less room for excuses. Marin's absence still showed whenever the outside picture lagged, but the team no longer tried to watch two departing futures at once. Pico stayed beside Owen and contributed nothing to the judgment. Nolan had not needed the dog to tell him which men were leaving and which kept returning. Left movement holding close, the operator said. Var? Nolan asked. Still with it. Iris looked toward the empty distance where the fragment had disappeared. You comfortable with that? No. Would you reverse it? Nolan looked once at the empty ground. Not with what I know now. Then keep moving. Owen said, Var's people are setting again. Nolan turned with his whole body to protect the shoulder. Then we stay with the people still making choices about us. The sentence was as far as he could honestly go. He did not know what Var valued most. He only knew the man had not spent effort restoring the larger company and had repeatedly surrendered chances to disappear with it. Kale had been the right man to capture when Nolan took him. Var was the right problem now. Ahead, the returning group tightened once more, instead of running. Nolan watched them come and wondered what a rational man wanted badly enough to keep giving up distance. Var had room to run. Nolan saw it beyond the service cut, where the ground widened and the next working track bent away from pursuit. They've got a clean exit, one assault operator said. Nolan turned with his whole body, keeping the injured arm close. The shoulder sharpened whenever he forgot what it could no longer do. How much room? He asked. Enough. Iris watched Var's men move. If they keep that pace, they open the gap. Owen stayed a step behind with Pico tight to him. No one asked the dog for answers. Var's people reached the wider ground. Gap is opening, the forward operator said. If they keep moving, we lose useful contact. Nolan answered, then watch what they choose. The rear of Var's group slowed. 2 men turned. Var turned with them. There, Iris said. They had distance. Owen looked once toward the open ground. Still have it, if they keep going. Var's men came back toward the narrow track. Nolan needed to stay attached. Nolan watched the cleanest escape-compatible opportunity of the day begin to disappear under their own feet. They're spending it, the operator said. Nolan nodded. He did not yet know exactly what Var wanted. He could see what Var was willing to give up to get it. The return hit the pursuit where it was weakest, the moving connection between Nolan's people. One assault operator was forced off the forward track, and the second had to cover him. Nolan stepped in by reflex. He reached with the injured side and his shoulder failed before the rest of him did. His arm dropped uselessly for half a second. Iris caught his vest and pulled him back behind the low work boundary. That job is over. Nolan looked at the track. Temporarily. For today, try arguing with your arm later. The forward operator called, They're staying on us. Nolan asked, Any move back toward the open ground? None. They were burning the chance to leave by forcing Nolan's team to stop, turn, and recover one another. Owen said, Blind side is getting ugly. Nolan looked at Pico. Can he check it? Owen shook his head before Nolan finished. No deploy, too much crossing movement. If I send Pico, I lose my hands to the dog, and you need them here. Nolan said, Keep your hands here. The uncertainty remained. Keep him in. Done. Owen added, You will not get an answer from the dog on that side. I'm not asking twice. Var pressed again. One operator called, Track is closing. Nolan watched the seconds Var was spending close to them instead of running. Each second cost both sides. That made the choice legible. Iris moved before Nolan issued the next command. Off this edge, parallel working line. She was already turning the team. Nolan looked at the harder strip running beside the track. We give ground. We give this ground. We keep 5 people moving. She pointed once at his injured side. You cannot be the hinge every time the front breaks. Nolan looked at the 2 assault operators. Can either of you keep trading the lead? One answered, Not if we keep dragging 3 directions at once. Iris said, There, that settled it. Nolan nodded. Go. One assault operator took the forward physical role Nolan would have owned earlier in the day. The second covered the outside. Owen kept Pico inside the human line and moved with them as an operator, not as a source of extra information. Nolan stayed where he could see and direct the reduced team. Var answered Fa'atarus's move by following them instead of taking the distance reopening behind him. His men paid again in lost escape space to keep attacking Nolan's ability to stay physically attached. One operator said he could still be leaving. Owen answered, he is spending the exit to stay on our movement. Nolan said, then stop assuming the exit is what he values first. Var's men pushed at the gap between lead and rear. The immediate contact loosened by a few yards, too little to become safety. Var had spent distance and time on the turn back. Nolan's team had spent ground and one more piece of its old shape. Iris checked his shoulder without touching it. Front roll stays reassigned. Nolan said, you enjoy saying that. I enjoy you hearing it eventually. Owen looked toward the side he had chosen not to send Pico into. Still no answer over there. We keep the uncertainty, Nolan said. Cheaper than losing the dog. The forward operator said, they're holding close. Nolan asked, close enough to hit us again? Yes. Close enough to do it cheaply? No. Ahead, Var's remaining men stayed near enough to threaten another interruption. Nolan could now see the next problem clearly. If he waited, Var would keep choosing when to hit the moving connection until one strike finally broke contact. Var had spent the easy distance too. Neither side's position improved with delay. You're quiet, Iris said. Owen added, that usually means work for us. Nolan watched Var's movements settle near the working track. I'm done receiving his timing. One assault operator glanced back. What replaces it? Nolan's shoulder throbbed with his pulse. He looked at the men who had chosen twice to come back when they could have left. We make him answer ours, we hunt back. Nolan did not wait for Var to choose the next interruption. The produce transfer district lay ahead beyond broken working ground, with a service road running toward low industrial roofs and open strips between them. If Nolan stayed reactive, Var could recover room, widen his choices and eventually break contact. Nolan's team could not sustain that indefinitely. Marin was dead. His shoulder was unreliable. 5 humans and Pico were still moving, but endurance had become a shrinking resource. We moved before he rebuilds space, Nolan said. Iris looked down the service road. What do you need from him? A decision while his options are still narrow. The forward assault operator asked, you want him turning or stopping? Either. I want him answering us. The second operator said, outside stays mine. Until it costs the team, then you come back. Owen kept Pico inside the human movement. Dog stays passive, he said. Too much cross-movement ahead. Nolan nodded. Human work only. He angled the team toward Var's last coherent position. The plan was simple enough to survive reality. Force a response before Var regained room. Far behind, slower friendly elements kept closing on the larger area. They were not coming to save Nolan, but time would reduce broad movement choices for anyone still trying to escape. Iris said, that clock hurts him later. Nolan felt his shoulder tighten as he moved. Ours hurts now. If contact broke first, the wider pressure would mean nothing to the 5 people who had failed to hold it. They were still entering Nolan's intended approach when the road ahead changed too fast to be a reaction. Var's people came out from the working structures already advancing. The forward operators said, they were moving before we showed. Confirmed. Nolan asked. Their lead was committed before our angle changed. Iris said, so he did not wait for your invitation. Good, neither did we. The first contact struck before either side reached preferred ground. Nolan had meant to make Var turn while keeping his own people connected. Var's advance drove toward the seam between Nolan's forward pair and the rest. Lead, slow half a step, Nolan called. Do not outrun us. Slowing. Outside? Still with you. Then Var's people shifted across the service road and forced the outside operator wider. I'm losing the road edge. Iris said, if he folds in now, Var owns the road. Nolan tried to see both directions, and his shoulder flared when he turned too quickly. Give the road before we give the team shift left. Left where? Owen asked. Working ground. Stay connected. They changed together. Var answered immediately, abandoning the wider road contest and driving into the space the shift had just weakened. He read it, the forward operator said. Yes. Change again. Not yet. Nolan watched Var's timing. Both plans were broken now. Neither commander had the fight he had intended, and the next mistake would be made inside that fact. Var made the next adjustment first. His remaining men stopped trying to dominate the whole road and struck at the gap between Nolan's two assault operators. Outside is being pulled off us, Owen said. Nolan answered, bring him back. The outside operator moved, but Var's pressure arrived as he crossed. He went down hard near the road edge. Iris reached him first. Stay down. I can stand. Standing is not the same as assault capable. Move rearward. I can still fight. Nolan said, rear security, that is the job. The operator stared at him, then nodded and dragged himself clear enough to watch behind them. The team had lost a close action body without losing a life. Forward, you own the physical lead now, Nolan said. Understood. Owen, close the middle. Moving. Owen worked as an operator, keeping Pico tight while helping prevent the human line from splitting. Var had bought the impairment, but his group paid for concentrating on it. The forward operator called, their wider men are peeling off. Do not chase them, Nolan said. Var stays the reference. Iris shifted toward Nolan when he tried to step into the missing assault role. No. We are short one. And you are short a shoulder. I am moving Owen closer. You stay where you can command. Nolan let her make the change. Var compressed his remaining people rather than trying to recover the men who had fallen away. Owen said, he is smaller now. Iris answered, so are we. Nolan watched the altered fight. Then nobody spends what we no longer have. The separation that thought was barely enough to breathe. Nolan's impaired operator could still move and cover the rear, but he was out of close assault. The forward corps had become Nolan, Iris, Owen, and one assault operator, with Pico still close to Owen and irrelevant to the decision. Rear status? Nolan asked. Clear for the moment, the impaired operator answered. I can hold that, nothing more. That is enough. Ahead, Var's coherent group had shrunk to a compact handful. The assault operator said, they do not have the depth they had 5 minutes ago. Neither do we, Iris said. Owen looked toward the tighter working district. Can we break off? Iris shook her head. Not cleanly. Give him room now, and he can rebuild movement before we can recover capacity. Nolan added, and if he waits? Owen glanced toward the distant approaches behind them. The wider net gets worse for him. No one needed to pretend those distant forces were about to arrive. Their value was time, and time was running against Var, while immediate fatigue ran against Nolan. Var's remaining men pulled toward the produce transfer cooperative instead of reopening broad ground. He's going tighter, the assault operator said. Because he cannot afford another long reset, Nolan replied. Iris looked at his shoulder. Close ground is not kind to us either. Nothing left is kind. Owen asked, we stay attached? Nolan looked at the reduced enemy ahead and the reduced team around him. Both offensives had collided, both had failed to produce clean initiative, and both sides had lost capability. We stay attached. There would be no cheap reset for either side. Whatever settled the hunt now would happen closer. VAR did not give Nolan time to settle. The reduced enemy group crossed the open-loading apron in short, hard movement, using the packing structure to keep the distance tight, and forcing Nolan's close capable four toward the service yard before they could choose a cleaner line. The impaired operator stayed behind them, watching the rear, without pretending he could rejoin the front. Nolan reached across his body as the first pressure turned them. His shoulder answered, late and weak, pulling him off balance. He caught himself with his good arm against the packing structure. "They're compressing us," Owen said. "How close?" "Close enough that we keep turning instead of choosing." Iris looked from the apron to the service yard. "Then stop making your shoulder the hinge." The surviving assault operator asked, "You want me forward on VAR?" Nolan saw VAR through the moving bodies, close enough to tempt the answer that had worked on KL. "Yes, but I do not go with you the way I did on KL." Iris glanced at his arm. "Good, because you can't." Nolan accepted the fact without argument. "Rear?" he called. The impaired operator answered, "Clear behind. I can keep it that way if I stay out of the front." "Stay there." VAR pressed closer, keeping his remaining people tight enough that Nolan could not isolate one man without exposing another. "We win this distributed," Nolan said. "Nobody chases a personal fight." This hunt required a different answer. "Service yard," Iris said. She was already moving before Nolan answered. "The apron is stretching us. Yard keeps the four of us connected." Nolan looked at the route she had chosen. It simply kept tired people closer. "Go with Iris." The assault operator moved first. Owen stayed near the center as a human operator and kept Pico behind the active line. "Dog stays with me," Owen said. "He is not entering this." "Correct." Nolan tried the first coordinated turn. "Front checks VAR. Iris shifts us right. Owen holds the middle." "Moving," Iris said. "Middle held," Owen answered. For 3 seconds the shape worked. Then VAR changed it. He did not follow Iris's movement. He drove one of his remaining men toward Owen, forcing the assault operator to leave VAR and prevent the team from splitting. "Middle is going," Owen said. "Front, back to him," Nolan ordered. "Can't, VAR's already through the first angle." Iris snapped, "Then move, don't freeze." Nolan stepped toward the gap, and his shoulder failed when contact turned him. Pain emptied the arm of useful strength. VAR gained several yards inside the service charge, while Nolan recovered. The first coordination had preserved the team, but failed to stop the compression. The assault operator said, "He's trying to split us faster than we can rotate." Iris answered, "Then we stop rotating, we move as one." Nolan said, "Do it now." Owen answered, "Moving with her now." The impaired operator called, "Rear stays clear." "Reset," Nolan said. Iris shook her head. "No reset, we change while moving." Agreed, rear status. "Still clear," the impaired operator called. "I can give you that, and nothing else." "That is exactly what I need." VAR came again before the new arrangement settled. Nolan stopped trying to occupy the strongest physical role. "Owen, stay connected to Iris. Front, hold VAR only long enough to make him choose. Rear keeps our back clean." The assault operator asked, "And you?" "I watch the choice." Iris shifted first, pulling the team off the packing structure edge before VAR could pin them there. Owen moved with her and physically prevented one of VAR's men from cutting the human line in two. "Middle's still ours," Owen said. "Keep it." The assault operator met VAR's close pressure and gave ground without losing contact. VAR adapted again. He stopped trying to split Owen and turned toward Iris's movement, forcing her toward the apron where the team would stretch. "He's changing my exit," Iris said. Nolan saw the new constraint. "Can you keep us off the apron?" "For one move, not 3. 1 is enough." He waited a beat longer than instinct liked. VAR committed toward the opening he believed Iris had to use. Nolan called it. Now, Iris keeps moving, Owen closes the middle, front takes the space Var just left. Moving. Middle closed. On him. The team changed direction together. Owen blocked the separation Var had been exploiting. The assault operator took the physical opening created by Var's turn. Iris preserved the team's movement, instead of letting the fight become a static knot. Nolan entered only on his good side, adding force at the moment the others had already changed the state. Var broke half free toward the apron. Nolan did not chase alone. Stay together, make him beat all four. Var changed direction again. Owen saw it. He's trying to split us again. The last coherent man beside Var moved to reopen space between Owen and the assault operator. Split coming, Owen warned. I have it, Iris said. She redirected before the gap fully formed, forcing Var to spend another step recovering position. The assault operator said, still with Var, he's losing the outside. Nolan saw the timing window created by all three rolls. Rear. Clear, the impaired operator answered. Then now. Together. Close contact became breath, slipping footing, exhausted hands, and bodies trying to keep control without enough strength left for waste. Nolan's shoulder failed whenever he asked it to pull, so he stopped asking. Owen kept the middle closed. Iris kept the team moving as one unit, instead of letting fatigue freeze them. The assault operators supplied the physical work Nolan could no longer own. Var remained competent to the end, changing direction until every useful direction had another person already there. When the struggle finally stopped changing, Var and the last coherent men with him were neutralized as an active force. Pico shifted behind Owen, alive and uninvolved in the decision that ended the fight. Iris checked the impaired operator, then Nolan. Shoulder. Still bad. Good, I was worried victory had cured you. He ignored that. Immediate threat. The assault operator looked across the loading apron and packing structure, while the impaired operator maintained the rear. Iris answered after one careful scan. Ended. Marin was dead, Nolan injured, and one operator still significantly impaired. Some of Kale's original men had escaped immediate pursuit. Kale himself remained captured, and taking him had still been the right victory at the time. Var had required another one. Nolan looked at the people still standing. We hold what we have. That was enough. The hunt ended there.